All right, ready to dive into some exposed Git configuration files today?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I know, I know.
Sounds riveting,
It
right?
doesn't exactly sound like a summer blockbuster,
Yeah.
but trust me, this stuff is way more relevant
Oh,
to your
yeah.
daily life than you might think.
Absolutely.
We're talking about the security of
Pretty much.
pretty much every app you use, every website you visit.
It's the foundation of everything we do online.
It really
It's
is.
interesting, though, how these files are often overlooked,
Yeah,
even though they're like the backstage pass to your entire software project.
yeah, that's a good point.
They contain all sorts of crucial information, and that's really where the danger lies.
Okay, so for those of us who haven't spent much time in the software world,
Yep.
what exactly are these Git configuration files?
It's like, imagine you're building a house.
Okay.
Your Git configuration files, like the master blueprint,
Okay.
with all the instructions, measurements, and even the codes to the security system.
Ah, interesting.
So it's meant to keep everything running smoothly.
Right.
But if it falls into the wrong hands,
Uh-oh.
well, you can see where this is going.
Yeah, that analogy makes it pretty clear.
Yeah.
But how does this stuff actually get exposed?
Mhm.
Are we talking about super skilled hackers breaking into systems?
It's often much simpler than that.
Really?
Yeah, developers might accidentally save sensitive data,
Uh-huh.
like API keys or login tokens, directly into these configuration files.
Oh, no.
And here's the kicker. Even if they realize the mistake and remove it later,
Mm.
it's still there in the project's history.
Oh, wow.
So anyone who gains access to that repository can dig it up.
So it's kind of like a digital paper trail that never really goes away.
Exactly.
That's unsettling.
Yeah,
Okay, let's say someone does get their hands on this blueprint.
right.
How much damage could they really do?
I think it's helpful to look at a real-world example to really drive this point home.
Okay.
The Emerald Whale malware campaign. We're talking over 15,000 stolen credentials and a terabyte of private data compromised.
A terabyte.
Yeah.
That's a lot of data.
Well, it's hard to even imagine
Yeah,
how much information that is.
it is.
So how do they manage to pull that off?
So there's a cybersecurity firm called Cydig,
Okay.
and they set up a honeypot in the cloud.
Okay.
Think of it like a digital trap to lure in attackers.
Okay. Got it.
They discovered that these hackers weren't using some incredibly complex exploit.
Mm-hmm.
They were simply exploiting exposed credentials to gain access to repositories.
Oh, wow.
Once they were in, they started using a command called list buckets.
List buckets.
Yeah, this might sound harmless,
Okay.
but in cloud services like AWS list buckets reveals all the available storage containers connected to an account.
So it's kind of like handing them a map to all the treasure chests.
Exactly.
Oh, geez.
From there, the attackers created their own buckets to stash the stolen data,
Mhm.
setting themselves up to extort the organization or sell that information on the dark web. That's scary.
What's really concerning is this wasn't some elaborate hack,
Right.
but just exploiting a very common oversight.
Okay, so we've got exposed credentials leading to attackers getting into repositories,
Right.
stealing massive amounts of data.
Yes.
But how are these attackers even finding these vulnerable repositories in the first place? Are they just stumbling across them randomly?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
This is where things get even scarier.
Okay.
They're using tools
Mhm.
specifically designed to automate these attacks.
Oh, wow.
They don't need to poke around manually.
Mm-hmm.
These tools scan huge numbers of repositories at an alarming speed,
Wow.
looking for exactly this kind of vulnerability.
So it's not just a few lone hackers anymore. We're
Yeah.
talking about organized.
Yeah, organized and automated.
Automated attacks happening at a scale that's hard to grasp.
Absolutely.
This is really starting to paint a pretty bleak picture.
Yeah, it's a little concerning.
So let's say they do get hold of some Git credentials.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly can they do with them?
Right.
Is it really that big of a deal?
It might seem like just access to some code,
Yeah.
but it's often much more than that.
Okay.
Compromised Git credentials unlock private repositories,
Right.
which often contain even more credentials hard-coded within them.
Oh, wow.
It's a vulnerability that just keeps cascading.
So one exposed credential can set off a chain reaction,
No.
leading to a whole bunch of compromised accounts?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now I'm officially nervous.
Understandably.
But let's say they manage to get into a repository.
Yeah.
What's the worst case scenario here?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of control could they gain?
Think of it this way.
Okay.
Those credentials might give them the keys to the cloud environment itself.
Oh, no.
With that access, they can start using commands to test permissions.
Oh, geez.
In some cases, they could even create new users with admin privileges.
Wait, so they could potentially gain complete control
Yeah, potentially complete control.
over someone's entire system just from a single exposed Git config file.
That's the scary part.
That's a lot of power from what seemed like a pretty small oversight.
Yeah, it is. And that's why it's so crucial to understand this domino effect.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about losing some code.
Right.
We're talking about attackers gaining control far beyond the initial code base.
All right, we've definitely established that exposed Git configuration files are a serious threat.
I think so.
But what can we actually do about it? How do we protect ourselves?
That's the important question.
Yeah, what are the practical steps that people and organizations can take?
The good news is there are some very practical steps to take.
Okay, great.
It all starts with never hard-coding credentials directly into your projects.
Okay.
I know it can be tempting during development,
Yeah.
but it's simply not worth the risk.
Right, because even if you delete them later, they're still lurking in the project's history.
Exactly.
So what are the alternatives?
Well, environment files,
Okay.
use them to store sensitive information
Mm-hmm.
and make sure they're properly excluded from version control.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
there's a file called .gitignore
Okay.
that basically tells Git to ignore specific files or folders when tracking changes.
Okay.
So your sensitive info stays completely out of the repository.
So gitignore, for anyone who's not familiar, is basically like a do not disturb sign
Yeah,
for your sensitive info.
a great way to think about it.
Okay, so no hard coding credentials.
Right, yeah.
Use environment files.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Another important step is using separate credentials for development and production environments.
Got it.
If one set is compromised, the damage is contained.
Okay.
Think of it like having separate keys for your house and your car.
Right.
If you lose your car keys,
Yeah,
at least you can still get into your house.
I like it. Okay, so no hard coding, use environment files, and separate credentials for different environments.
Right,
But let's be real, mistakes happen.
of course.
Is there a safety net?
Yeah.
Some way to catch these issues before they blow up?
Absolutely. Secret scanning tools. Before deploying any project, run it through a scanner
Mm-hmm.
to identify any hard-coded credentials that might have slipped through the cracks.
Okay.
Think of it like a spell checker for security.
I like that. What are some of the tools that are out there?
You've got open source options like
Yeah.
TruffleHog and GitLeaks,
Okay.
which are a great starting point.
Mm-hmm.
And for more robust support, there are proprietary tools like GitGuardian.
Okay.
So whether you're a small team or a large organization, there are tools available to fit your needs and budget.
That's great. So it sounds like even with the threat being so significant,
Right.
there are also plenty of ways to protect ourselves.
Exactly.
What else should we be thinking about?
So these steps we've discussed are a powerful first line of defense.
Okay.
But it's important to remember that this is an ongoing process.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll talk more about this after a quick break.
So before the break, we were getting into secret scanning tools. You
Yeah.
mentioned this shouldn't be a one-time thing, right?
It's not like checking off a to-do list.
Right.
It needs to be baked into your development process.
Okay. So how do you actually make that happen?
Yeah.
How do you integrate these tools so they're constantly on the lookout for vulnerabilities?
Think of it like an assembly line for your software.
Okay.
Each step is automated to ensure quality and security.
Right.
That's what CI/CD, or continuous integration and continuous delivery, is all about.
Got it.
Integrating secret scanning into this pipeline is crucial.
Okay.
It helps catch those hard-coded secrets before they even made it to a public repository.
So you're constantly scanning for potential problems
Yes.
throughout the development process, not just at the very end.
All the time.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But let's step back for a second and think about the bigger picture here.
Okay.
We've talked about how these attacks happen and the tools attackers use,
Right.
but what are the real-world consequences?
Mhm.
What's at stake for organizations and individuals?
The consequences can be really severe.
Yeah.
For organizations, you're looking at financial losses, damage to their reputation, and even legal repercussions.
Wow.
Think about the cost of investigating a breach,
Right.
notifying affected customers, and
Mm.
potentially paying regulatory fines.
And that's not even considering the long-term impact on customer trust.
Absolutely.
Once people lose faith in a company's ability to protect their data,
It's hard to get that back.
it can be really hard to regain that trust.
Yeah,
And for individuals, the consequences can be just as serious.
absolutely.
Stolen credentials can lead to identity theft fraud,
All sorts of things.
even harassment. It's not just about losing access to an account.
Right.
It's about the potential ripple effects on your life.
Yeah, the domino effect.
Yeah, this is all pretty overwhelming.
It can be.
It seems like there are so many potential threats out there,
Yeah.
and the attackers always seem to be one step ahead.
It feels that way sometimes.
So how do we stay informed and proactive in this constantly changing landscape?
It's a great question, and it's one we should all be asking. First, staying educated about the latest threats is crucial.
Okay, there are a ton of resources available online,
Oh, yeah.
from cybersecurity blogs and podcasts to industry reports and webinars.
Tons of resources.
It can be hard to know where to start, though.
It can be. Yeah, it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate the power of connecting with other security professionals.
Okay.
Attending conferences, participating in online forums, sharing knowledge and experiences can really help us stay ahead of the curve.
So staying informed is crucial.
Definitely.
But what about the proactive part?
Mhm.
What concrete steps can people and organizations take to strengthen their security?
One of the most important things is a layered approach to security.
Okay.
This means having multiple lines of defense so that if one layer is breached, the others can still protect your data.
Can you give us some examples of what these layers might look like?
Absolutely. Strong passwords and multi-factor authentication are essential.
Right.
I know we hear this all the time, but it's worth repeating.
Okay.
Use strong, unique passwords for every account and turn on multi-factor authentication whenever possible.
Right.
It's like having a lock and a security guard for your digital life.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So we've got strong passwords and multi-factor authentication as the first line of defense.
Right.
What else?
It's not just about individual accounts.
Whoa.
Organizations need to have robust access controls to limit who can access sensitive data.
Right.
Regularly reviewing those permissions is crucial.
Yeah.
Think of it like having different levels of security clearance within a company.
Okay.
Not everyone needs access to the top secret files.
So it's about making sure that only the people who absolutely need access to certain information have it.
Exactly.
And then checking up on those permissions to make sure they're still appropriate.
Right. Regular audits.
Got it. What other layers are there?
There are tools like firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and something called SIEM, which stands for Security Information and Event Management.
Okay, so we've got firewalls to block unwanted traffic.
Right.
Intrusion detection systems to alert us to suspicious activity.
Yes.
And a SIEM to collect and analyze security data.
That's right.
These all sound like important pieces of the puzzle,
They are.
but it can be challenging to know where to start,
Yeah.
especially for smaller organizations with limited resources.
That's true.
So do you have any advice for them?
It's important to prioritize your efforts based on your specific risks and needs.
Okay.
A security consultant can help you figure out your vulnerabilities and develop a plan to address them.
So you don't need to try to do everything at once. You
Well-
can start with the most critical areas and build from there.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, what about the human element?
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, because we can have all the fancy tools in the world,
Doesn't matter.
but if somebody clicks on a phishing link,
It's all over.
it's game over.
Yeah. Employee training and awareness programs are essential to prevent things like social engineering attacks.
Right, because even the most sophisticated systems can be bypassed if someone falls for a phishing email or accidentally gives away their credentials.
Exactly.
So how do we address that?
It's all about creating a culture of security where everyone understands the importance of protecting sensitive information.
So we've talked about staying informed,
Yes.
a layered approach to security and employee training.
Those are the big ones.
It's a lot to take in, but it sounds like a solid foundation.
It is.
Is there anything else we should be thinking about?
Cybersecurity is a constant process.
Okay.
It requires vigilance and adaptation because the threat landscape is always changing.
So we can never let our guard down.
That's right.
We'll explore this idea a bit further after a short break. So we were talking about cybersecurity as a constant process.
Right. Always evolving.
What does that actually look like in practice?
You know, it's a bit like tending a garden.
Okay.
You can't just plant some seeds and expect everything to thrive without ongoing care.
Right.
You need to stay vigilant, adapt to changing conditions, constantly learn new techniques.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So how do we tend the garden of our cybersecurity?
Well, it involves staying up to date with the latest threats and vulnerabilities.
Okay.
Think of it like learning about new pests or diseases that could affect your plants.
Right.
The threat landscape is constantly evolving,
Yeah.
so we need to continuously educate ourselves.
And where do we go to learn about these new pests and diseases?
There are a lot of great resources out there,
Yeah.
security blogs and podcasts, industry newsletters.
Okay.
Even following reputable security researchers on social media can be really helpful. There are also online communities and forums where you can connect with other professionals and share knowledge.
So it's about staying connected and sharing information with others.
Definitely.
It's almost like a neighborhood watch for cybersecurity.
Exactly.
Right.
And just like a neighborhood watch, we need to be proactive.
Okay.
This means regularly reviewing and updating our security practices.
So like what kinds of things?
Are our passwords strong enough? Are we using multi-factor authentication everywhere we can?
Got it.
Are our software development processes secure? Are we training our employees to spot phishing attempts? It's all about continually evaluating and improving.
So tending this cybersecurity garden involves staying informed, being proactive, and always looking for ways to improve.
Yes.
What else should we keep in mind?
It's important to remember that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
Cybersecurity is not just the responsibility of IT professionals or cybersecurity experts.
Right.
It's something that impacts all of us.
Because whether we're individuals or organizations, we all rely on technology and we all have a role to play in keeping ourselves and each other safe.
Absolutely. And the more we work together, the better prepared we'll be to face the challenges ahead.
That's a great point. This has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has been.
We've learned so much about a threat that I think many of us were unaware of.
Yeah. It's definitely something that people don't always think about.
It's a bit unnerving to realize how exposed our data can be.
Right.
But it's also empowering to know that there are steps we can take to protect ourselves.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And the more we understand about these threats, the better equipped we'll be to defend against them.
So to wrap things up, what are the key takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
First, never underestimate the importance of seemingly small security details like Git configuration files.
Okay.
They can be a gateway to much larger vulnerabilities.
Right. It's like that saying, for want of a nail, the shoe was lost.
Exactly.
For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. And for want of a horse, the rider was lost.
Yeah.
A seemingly small oversight can have massive consequences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Second, remember that cybersecurity is not a one-time fix,
Right.
but a continuous process. Staying informed, being proactive, and adapting to the changing threat landscape are all essential.
And lastly, remember that we're all in this together.
Yes.
Sharing knowledge, collaborating, and supporting each other is crucial for creating a safer digital world.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of exposed Git configuration files.
It's been my pleasure.
We hope you found it informative and helpful.
I hope so too.
And to all our listeners out there, stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay safe.
Be safe out there.
Until next time on The Deep Dive.